Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, so now we'll continue with discussion on parsing, and we'll gradually begin focusing on dependency parsing, but we'll have to go to the algorithmics of probabilistic parsing. So today I'd like to do a little more discussion on dependency parsing and then uh, get back to probabilistic parsing. So as I have said many times before, parsing can be called the epitome of natural language processing. It comes almost halfway between the top of the stack and the bottom of the stack. Bottom of the stack is morphology, and top of the stack is discourse and pragmatics. Pragmatics is where we deal with users' intention, speakers' intention, sentiment, emotion, implicature, nuances, innuendos, stances, and so on. You know, what exactly is in the mind of the speaker and how is the listener receiving the communication. That is the pragmatic part. And discourse also is at a very high level of the stack because there we have to link the sentences together. It involves mainly co-reference, cohesion, and coherence problem solution. Parsing comes almost halfway between the top and the bottom of the stack and involves deep linguistic insight and computational skill, technical excellence, I would say, linguistic insight and technical computational excellence. Now, I will again request all of you to place as many questions as you can on the chat box. So the goal is to understand and learn the principles and techniques of natural language processing. Learn it in your own pace, learn it in your own way, but do learn. Okay, and there is nothing to worry about grades, passing, failing, etc. You'll definitely get very good grades if you continuously and regularly devoted yourself to learning the concepts, doing the assignments, acquiring both conceptual depth and technical skills. So let's proceed. We also understand that this week the remaining two lectures, that is Tuesday and Thursday lecture, will be totally devoted to revising, and come prepared with many questions, many comments, discussions, which we'll do on Tuesday and Thursday. So let's proceed with parsing. And we want to discuss dependency parsing in more detail. We want to understand why do we need another method of parsing. Parsing, you understand, is converting a linear sequence to a two-dimensional representation in the form of a tree typically, but it could be directed acyclic graph also. So dynamic parsing algorithm, probabilistic dynamic parsing, all these are our concerns. So in parsing, we want to create groups, and we have to create groups of groups, groups of groups of groups, okay? Embedding, recursion, all these are the defining words for parsing. Now, there are two kinds of parse representations, constituency and dependency. In constituency, we start with the S symbol and expand this into noun phrase and verb phrase. In dependency parsing, we hit the main verb of the sentence and look at the arguments and the adjuncts. Arguments are the essential elements which link with the verb to make up the sentence, and adjuncts are additional information. So you'd recall the sentence, Ram reads a book in the evening in his study. So read as the main verb requires essential element as agent. Somebody should read. And what is read is the object. These two are the essential elements without which the desire of read is not complete. So those are called arguments, and additional information like in the evening, in his study, these are called adjuncts or additional information. So dependency parsing organizes information around the main verb by linking the nouns and noun phrases of the sentence with the main verb. Now, remember NLP is always recursive. So noun phrases within themselves can contain verb phrases, preposition phrases, and so on. Now, since machine learning is applied for both kinds of parsing, constituency and dependency, we need data. And this data is in the form of trees. The Penn constituency tree bank data is used for creating probabilistic parsers for constituency parsing. Constituency parsing isolates the phrases in the sentence. It isolates phrases within phrases within phrases recursively. And Prague dependency tree bank is the data for creating probabilistic dependency parser. Okay, probabilistic constituency parser and probabilistic dependency parser. And as you might guess, this particular problem also has been dealt with deeply using deep neural networks. Neural networks have been used for parsing also both dependency and constituency. Next semester, I will teach a course on deep learning for natural language processing. The course is called Deep Learning for Natural Language Processing, where we'll do a lot of deep learning based approaches to natural language processing problems. But this semester also we'll touch upon deep learning based techniques, and of course we'll detail quite a few of them. So let's again understand that for machine learning approach to parsing, we need data in the form of what is called tree bank, and the tree bank can be either dependency tree bank or constituency tree bank. The names Penn and Prague refer to the places where these data bases or machine learning data were created. University of Pennsylvania, the constituency tree bank data was created, and in Prague, which is the capital of Czechoslovakia, in the Prague University, the dependency tree bank data were created. So all these data actually revolutionized the field of parsing. There was a paradigm change and machine learning was used for creating parsers. Now, before we transit to the next slide, I just want to draw your attention once again that dependency parsing is verb centric. We first isolate the main verb and bring in other elements in the sentence linking with the main verb. Now we would like to delve into need for dependency parsing. Constituency parsing creates phrases. Dependency parsing creates dependencies. Two different approaches to parsing. Why? Why do we need two different approaches? Now let's understand why do we need dependency parsing. We go back to our famous sentence. We have been referring to this again and again. And this is no surprise. I saw the boy with the telescope is a classical sentence which illustrates structural ambiguity of syntax. So I saw the boy with the telescope. In one case, I have the telescope. In the other case, the boy has the telescope. And you have already understood that if the boy has the telescope, then the preposition phrase is inside the noun phrase. The noun phrase is a boy with a telescope. The whole thing is a noun phrase. I saw, what did I see? A boy with a telescope. So a boy with a telescope is a complete noun phrase. Within that, you have the preposition phrase with a telescope. Since with a telescope is within this noun phrase, so the boy, the telescope, they go together. So the boy holds the telescope. And the other parse tree is the verb phrase containing verb, the boy, and telescope at the same level. So the verb phrase contains verb, the boy, and the telescope all together within one umbrella. So the verb holds the telescope. Now the verb holds the telescope means the agent of the verb, that is I, hold the telescope. So the dependency parsing also shows this ambiguity when we create the dependency parse tree. If the boy has a telescope, then saw agent is I, object is boy. There is a determiner for the boy A, so a particular boy, okay, and then the modifier is with a telescope. This whole modifier is linking with the boy, you see. So this shows that I'm referring to a particular boy, the boy who holds the telescope. So the boy has the telescope in this case. The other dependency parse tree is saw agent, object is boy is a boy, all that is fine. Now the modifier is linking with saw, not with boy. So with a telescope is linking with saw, which means I hold the telescope. So you see, dependency parsing shows the dependencies more clearly than constituency parsing. Constituency parsing is extremely good at isolating the isolating the phrases, the umbrellas within which all activities take place. Now, dependency parsing is very good in showing which word depends on what, and thereby which activity is dependent on which entity, and vice versa. So that is the hallmark of dependency parsing, and that is the main reason why a different approach to parsing has been brought in. But there are more reasons, like free word order. So now let's observe some interesting points. So see, the seeing activity is the main verb here. So saw is the main verb. Now see the distance between saw and I. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 arcs in the path from saw to I. See the dependency tree. The path from saw to I is 1 arc length. It is directly linked to I is directly linked to saw. In the constituency parse tree, I is not directly linked to saw. There is a path from I to saw which has a length of 5. You have to traverse 5 arcs. Similarly, seeing the boy is the object. So here the path length between C and boy is again 5. But in dependency tree, the path length between C and boy is just 1. So the main elements of the seeing activity, the agent of seeing and the object of seeing, the boy, they are very close in their representation to the main activity, which is saw. Okay, I'm sorry. While in constituency parse tree, the essential elements of seeing, that is the agent I and the object of seeing, they're far apart from saw. Similarly, the instrument of seeing, if that is telescope, or if the telescope is with the boy, then between telescope and boy also there is a long path length. So you start from boy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A path length of 6 needs to be traversed in going from boy to telescope. So the fact that the boy holds the telescope is not as obvious as in dependency tree, because in dependency tree, from boy to telescope, the path length is only 2. Okay, so the proximity is much more, and that is the attraction of dependency parse. It puts the related entities together very well. Then why at all one should worry about constituency parse tree? The constituency parse tree creates a kind of box for keeping related things together. Okay, not direct relationships, but associated things or related things are boxed together inside a phrase. That is the other attraction of constituency parse tree, and you can intuitively feel that dependency algorithm should depend on constituency algorithm. Okay, because the dependencies are typically within the phrase. So with a telescope, the dependency is with and then telescope, and a telescope is a is a modifier for telescope. So with a telescope can be deciphered from a preposition phrase box. Okay, inside that box things are related, but still the the overt dependencies are very well shown in the dependency tree. Okay, so same is the case when I have the telescope. So if I have the telescope, then the seeing activity must relate to agent I, object boy, and with telescope, you see, from saw I have only two arcs leading to telescope. So the dependencies are extremely cleanly apparent in the dependency parse tree, whereas constituency parse tree can be looked upon as creating boxes within boxes within boxes for things which are related together. Okay. Another problem with constituency parse tree is that it doesn't show what kind of relationship exists within the box amongst the entities. Dependency parse tree, on the other hand, shows that relationship, the nature of that relationship. So C to I, the nature of the relationship is agency. I am the agent. C to boy, the nature of relationship is object. The boy is the object. And if we do a deep semantic role labeling, a deeper semantic analysis, then telescope will come out to be instrument of seeing. Now it just says a default relationship, mod and object, but anything can be modifier and the modifier relationship can come in any form. Here the modifier is the instrument. Okay, so that is a deeper analysis. This takes us to semantic analysis. So that is the attraction of dependency parse. So advantage of dependency parse over constituency parse is summarized here. Related entities are closer in dependency parse than in constituency parse in terms of path length. Free word order does not affect dependency parse, but constituency parse needs additional rules. And these additional rules may overgeneralize. So while we have understood that related things are closer in dependency parse, there is this new point, which is the free word order languages. Now, free word order languages can take liberty with the position of the word. Ram ne sham ko dekha, sham ko ram ne dekha. It is an example we have said many times. So there, since constituency parse depends on the word order, and it makes use of fundamentally the adjacency information. Okay, it tries to group together things which are adjacent to each other. So if you take Chomsky normal form, where you have maximum two non-terminals on the right hand side of a context-free grammar, there you can see that Chomsky normal form demands that the reduction from right hand side to left hand side should happen by linking together two adjacent entities. Okay, so this adjacency is very important in constituency parsing. Since adjacency is important, therefore, if you disturb the word order, then the adjacency can be violated. And also the non-terminals will get violated. So Ram ko Sham ne dekha and Sham ne Ram ko dekha. Here the agent and object have been reversed. Okay. Now the verb phrase is Ram. Suppose the sentence is Ram ne Sham ko dekha. So Sham ko dekha is the verb phrase. Now if I say Sham ko Ram ne dekha, that the verb phrase has been now broken. You have Ram ne between Sham ko and dekha. Okay, it has Ramne has come between Sham ko and Dekha. So Jyotsna, if you can take this example, it will be good. It shows how free word order can break the adjacency of a phrase. Okay, so Ramne Sham ko dekha is the verb phrase. When you say Sham ko Ramne dekha, Ramne has come between Sham ko and Dekha in the verb phrase. So the verb phrase has been made discontinuous. Okay, so now the constituency parsing will fail because the verb phrase, the two adjacent entities have been interposed with a third word Ramne. So, but it will not, the free word order will not affect dependency parsing, as we'll see just now. So, can somebody verify that you are looking at the slide advantage of DP over CP?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let us illustrate this point about CP needs additional rules. Okay. Um, I saw the boy with a telescope. S goes to NP, and var phrase goes to VBD, NP, PP. So VBD, NP, PP is VBD is saw, NP is a boy, PP is with a telescope. Now, I saw the boy with a telescope can be rephrased as with a telescope, I saw the boy. Okay, that is a valid English language sentence. Now, the adjunct with a telescope has been shifted to the beginning of the sentence. So, with a telescope, I saw the boy. What kind of grammar rule will you need? You will need this kind of grammar rule. Sentence goes to NP, VP, but sentence also goes to PP, NP, and VP, where PP is with a telescope and NP is I, saw the boy is the verb phrase. So you see, you need this additional rule, and when you introduce this additional rule, additional rules can overgeneralize. Okay, they can now admit sentences which are not grammatically correct. So just take this as an exercise. Suppose I have these two production rules. Sentence goes to NP and VP, and sentence goes to PP and PVP. That is preposition phrase, noun phrase, verb phrase. If I allow both these constructs, then there a possibility of ungrammatical sentences getting parsed correctly. Take this as an exercise. Take these two rules and come up with a case, if at all, that this grammar will admit wrong syntax English language sentences. So this is the case with any rule-based system. If you add additional rule, it can interact with the existing rules and disturb the order of things, admitting wrong possibilities or eliminating right possibilities. It can lead to false positive and false negative. So this is the advantage of dependency parse over constituency parse. So the fact that arguments are immediately linked is nicely illustrated by another example. This is from chapter number 15 of Zurawski and Martin. So I prefer the morning flight. I prefer the morning flight through Denver. That is the sentence. I prefer the morning flight through Denver. So see the dependency tree. Prefer is the main verb. I is the agent. And preferring what? Preferring the flight. What kind of flight? The flight. Which flight? Morning flight. And the flight is through Denver. Okay. So this is the dependency tree. If I construct the constituency parse tree, first of all, its size is much larger, and the dependencies are not so obvious. Sentence goes to noun phrase, pronoun, and I. Then sentence goes to also verb phrase goes to a verb, prefer, and then NP, noun phrase, the determiner the, and then there is norm. Norm is the morning flight through Denver. So this whole thing is another noun phrase. It is given a different name called a nominal. Okay, it is nominal. So nominal can be recursive, nominal can be nominal and preposition phrase, nominal can again be nominal and noun. So now nominal can go to noun. So nominal can be nom pp, nom noun, and morning flight through Denver. This whole thing is under nom. But flight and prefer, they are very far apart. Prefer is here, flight is very far from prefer. But in dependency tree, prefer and flight are adjacent to each other in the dependency tree. So who prefers I? What is preferred flight? These questions can be very easily answered by looking at the dependency tree, but not so easily from the constituency parse tree. However, after constituency parse tree, there were techniques for what is called head identification. So take a phrase and find out the main entity in that phrase. So this under this norm, you have morning flight through Denver. Flight is the most important entity. This is called the head finding exercise. So you need rules and techniques to identify the head of a phrase. And after you have identified the head of a phrase, that is the most important entity inside the phrase, you will have to look at other words which are dependent on this head and link them. Okay, so clearly constituency parsing can help dependency quite a lot. And an interesting question is, given the dependency tree, can you identify the phrases? Okay, if you look at the dependency tree, I prefer flight, the morning, Denver through. Flight is linked to the morning, Denver, and Denver is linked to through. So clearly, this whole subtree, flight, the morning, Denver, and through, will form a phrase. Okay, so inside the phrase, that you identify the head, and after finding the head, link other words inside that phrase. Pick the elements from inside the box and link them. So you're converting a constituency parse tree to a dependency parse tree. And given the dependency parse tree, you can identify the phrase structure of the sentence. So your third assignment, which is a relatively easy one, you will not need lot of time and very little coding and implementation. Essentially, you have to give rules where from dependency parse tree you will construct the constituency parse tree, and from constituency parse tree you will get the dependency parse tree. So this is your third assignment, and that assignment will give you a lot of insight into both constituency parsing and dependency parsing. After all, you have to understand what is constituency parsing, what is dependency parsing, and when should one use which one. If you take Indian languages, Kashmiri, Dogri, Malayalam, Tamil, Bengali, Assamese, Nagamese, Mizo, take any language, the word order is normally free. In Indian languages, we are not very strict about the word order. We can place the words anywhere, okay, anywhere, almost anywhere. And the reason for that is that the markers are there on the words. The words carry markers or signs as to what is their semantic role. Okay, are the agent, object, instrument, place, time, what is their role? So since the marking is on the word itself, you can take liberty with placing the word. And if the word order is fixed, because the position itself is encoding the semantic role, you cannot take liberty with the word order. And constituency parsing thrives when the word order is fixed. Okay. So this example of I prefer the morning flight through Denver shows very well the fact that related things can be falling far apart in constituency parsing. Now there are something called dependency relations. Just like we looked at levels in part of speech tagging, there were part of speech levels. In constituency parsing, there were non-terminals for noun phrase, verb phrase, preposition phrase, adjective phrase, and so on. In dependency parsing also, there are labels, okay? And the moment you hear the word labels, you can think of machine learning and classification. So placing labels is like solving a decision or classification problem. So nsubj, dobj, iobj, ccomp, xcomp, nmod, amod, nummod, appos, det, case, conj, cc. These are names of dependency relations, and these are labels. Okay, so deciding on what label to put is a classic machine learning problem. There is a classification problem. So given a sequence of words, I want to place these labels nsubj, dobj, iobj, etc. So I can convert a linear sequence of words, which is a raw sentence, into a labeled sequence of words where the labels are dependency relations. Now, dependency relations link two words. Okay, relations are always between two words. So that means we'll have to find a label linking two positions. And now you can see some familiar ground, the ground that you have already covered. In part of speech tagging, you gave labels to a position depending on the word there, and the labels before. In chunking, also you gave labels to different positions. Only thing is that chunking was a grouping exercise, and the label at each position depended on the word's previous labels and many features associated with current position, next position, previous position, and so on. In constituency parsing, again we are taking positions and giving labels to positions first, and then combining positions to uh, give labels to multiple positions together, giving labels to multiple positions together. So here also the same thing will work. We'll take two positions and link them and give them a label. So to illustrate these labels, let me look at these relations, names of these relations. NSUBJ, DOBJ, IOBJ. Ram gave a book to Sham. In this case, the main verb is gave. NSUBJ, that is the subject, is Ram. Direct object is book. Indirect object is Sham. Sham is the beneficiary of this giving action. So Ram gave a book to Sham is a linear sequence of words. Now the main verb is in the second position. Ram is in the first position. I link Ram and gave with NSUBJ label. So the task is first to find out which two words need to be linked and which two words should not be linked, and then giving a label to that link. So Ram and gave will be linked, and that link will have the label of NSUBJ. Similarly, between gave and book, there will be a label, direct object. Between gave and Sham, there will be a linkage, and the label of that linkage is IOBJ, indirect object. A will be linked to book, A will not be linked to gave. Notice that. Gave and A will not have any direct linkage, but A and book will be linked. To and Sham will be linked. To will not have any linkage with gave. Okay. So what to link, which two positions to link, and what is the label to be given to that linkage is a familiar question which you have encountered in part of speech tagging, chunking, and constituency parsing. C-comp and X-comp are complementizer. I said that he should go. I told him to go. Both sentences mean the same. Now, language has this beauty that the same meaning can be expressed in multiple ways, and the same sentence can have multiple meanings. So, meaning to sentence, there is many to many mapping. Same sentence having multiple meanings is ambiguity. Same meaning expressed in many different ways is lexical choice or lexical variation. So I said that he should go. That he should go is a complete sentence. Told him to go is not a complete sentence. So when you have a clause and the clause is a complete sentence, you use the label C-comp. And when you have a clause which is not a complete sentence, has an infinitive, to go, then you use X-comp. So the main verb said will link with the main verb of the subordinate clause go. Said and go will be linked by C-comp. Told and go will be linked by X-comp. Okay. Take this as an exercise why we need C-comp and X-comp both. Why do we need C-comp and X-comp both? Suppose you had just one single relation, comp, okay, which says link the main verb and the subordinate verb. Then what is the problem? Why do you have to separate these two cases? Incomplete sentence or infinitives and complete sentence are or complementizers. Why do you need two different levels? Think about this. Take this as an exercise. Then N mod is the nominal modifier, A mod is the adjective modifier, num mod is numerical modifier, appos is the appositional modifier. So these modifiers we encounter every day in day-to-day communication. All the time we use these modifiers. Now we are becoming aware of their existence and giving name to them, understanding them formally and precisely. N mod, the bungalow of the director. So here uh, the bungalow is modified by of the director. So this is the nominal modifier. So bungalow and director they are linked with N mod. The large bungalow, here large modifies bungalow, so that's why large and bungalow are linked with adjective modifier, A mod. 3 cups, 3 is a modifier for cups, so this is numerical modifier. So 3 and cups are linked with num mod. Apos, COVID-19, the pandemic. So COVID-19 is further specified by the phrase the pandemic. So then COVID-19 and pandemic will be linked with apos. This is appositional modifier. Then determiner is so common. Case is preposition, postposition, and other case markers. Conjunct is conjunct. CC is coordinating conjunct. So determiner, the bungalow. The relationship between the and bungalow. Case, the bungalow of director. So between of and director, there will be this relation called case. Conj, he is sincere and honest. Sincere and honest will be linked by this label conj. CC, he is sincere and honest and they will be linked by CC. Okay, so all these labels, which are really classification labels for a machine learning algorithm, they are actually classes. They have been designed carefully by deep insight into grammar of language and language phenomena. So the linguistic work gave this classification. Computational work gave algorithms to give these classifications. Uh, so, uh, so this is the these are the set of labels which are very important for dependency parsing, and we have described only a few of them. So see how they are used. I take another sentence. United cancelled the morning flights to Houston. Again, the example is from Jurafsky and Martin. And these examples are chosen because they illustrate the main points well. So there is a fictitious node called root. Just like in constituency parsing, you have S as the root node. Here in dependency parsing also, you have a fictitious node called root. It is fictitious, but it is very important because everything depends on root. So we call root as the head and the whole sentence as the modifier of the head. So you have many roots. For every sentence there is a root. This particular root has a specific modifier, namely the current sentence. So root links directly to the main verb of the sentence. So cancelled is the main verb of the sentence, and cancel is the main verb of the sentence, and who cancelled? United. Okay, so therefore you have n subj as the relation between cancelled and united. And what did United cancel? Cancelled flight. So you have direct object going from cancel to flight. Flight is further modified by morning. That's why n mod relation. Flight is further modified by the. That's why det relation. Flight is modified by Houston. The flight is to Houston. So again n mod between flight and Houston. And Houston to there is a case relationship. So notice this thing carefully, the direction of the arrow. The arrow is always from head to modifier. The arrow itself, okay, the head of the arrow goes to the tail. So that is, I think you will consider this a bit weird, that the head of the arrow is actually the tail of the dependency relationship. Okay, so that is a bit funny and you have to live with that. The modifier is linked by an arrow going from head to modifier. So going from is fine. So the head of the arrow enters the tail of the dependency relation. Okay, so there is this inversion which you should remember. The opposite convention also exists, but this convention has been found to be more useful for computational purposes. So let's look at this sentence once more to cement our understanding of head and modifier and the relationship, the name of the relationship that links the head with the modifier. So root is the head first of all. Everything begins from root. Root hits the main verb. Finding the main verb itself is a challenge. Part of speech tagging helps there. You must at least identify which the verbs of the sentence are. Now you were given a sentence using buffalo and cow in your first quiz. Okay, buffalo, buffaloes, buffaloes, buffalo, cow, cows, buffaloes, buffalo. So in that sentence, the question that was asked is how many singular nouns were there? Obviously, you can eliminate all those words which are ending in S. Even then, you have two words which did not have a plural marker, buffalo and cow. But the answer actually is one, because the second singular form of the word cow is a verb actually. So your task was to really first hit the main verb. So dependency parts are also algorithmically by a machine first has to identify the main verb. That is the central task. Okay, and it cannot be looked upon as a trivial task. If there are multiple verbs in the sentence, moreover, in English, all nouns can act as verb. So since all nouns can act as verb, then it is a non-trivial task to find out the main verb of the sentence. Okay, that's just that there you have to make use of the part of speech tagging. So main verb is cancelled. Cancelled is modified by united. So from the head you take an arrow to united. So united is the tail of the dependency relation, but the arrow enters united. From cancelled you have again another arrow entering flights. The label is direct object, but not any flights. Flight to Houston, that's why from flight you have an arrow going to Houston. And not any flights, it is the morning flight. Flight to Houston is fine, but again morning flight, not evening flight to Houston. So flight to morning you have modifier n mod. And the flights have been referred to before, that's why the. So the links with flights by this determinant relationship. Again, the direction of the arrow is from flight to the and flight to Houston. So from cancelled, there are two dependencies, united and flights. From flights, there are three dependencies, morning, the, and Houston. And from Houston, there is one dependency to. And from route, the main dependency starts, route to verb. So this is the structure that you obtain from the linear sequence of words. Next question obviously is, what is the algorithm? Okay, what is the algorithm by which you can produce these arrows as well as the labels? So we'll first solve the easier problem, namely unlabeled dependency tree. Unlabeled dependency tree is where you don't have to break your head over the labels, just like we did in chunking. In chunking, we just gave B and I labels. We did not break our head over what type of B and what type of I. Is it a noun phrase chunk or is it a verb phrase chunk? Is it an adverbial phrase chunk? We did not break our head over this. We are doing the assignment now, and next Sunday when we meet for 15 minutes per group, we'll again see what your progress is. My request to you is make regular progress, allocate fixed amount of time, and make steady regular progress. And do not worry about deadlines, grades, etc. Do the assignment at your comfortable pace, allocating time to this, and slowly and steadily. Okay, and every Sunday we'll measure how much progress you have made towards your final goal. Okay, so next Sunday we will check your pending work, including part of speech tagging, anything remaining, chunking, whatever you have done, and so on. So in chunking we did not worry about the level, type of the level, we were just worried about B and I. Here also you can see that you will produce these kind of relationships, which is a matter of linking two words together, very similar to putting a phrase relation between, let's say, cancel and flight, and then giving the label of the relation. So this will be done based on the current positions word, the neighboring context, features from the context. The same principle applies. Okay, machine learning algorithm will be invoked, and this will be working with features. The features will be aggregated either through rules, which is giving rise to a rule-based system, or through a graphical model like MEMM, HMM, conditional random field, or a discriminative model like support vector machine, or going forward by a deep learning system which will do sequence to sequence labeling. This sequence of raw words is converted to a sequence of labeled sentence. So we'll have to look at the algorithm for this. Dependency tree is defined this way. There is a single designated root node that has no incoming arcs. With the exception of the root node, each vertex has exactly one incoming arc. So that's why it is a tree. You don't have multiple parents, otherwise it becomes a directed acyclic graph. And there is a unique path from the root node to each vertex in V. That means the tree is connected. You do not have forest, you have a complete connected tree. And this means that every word is linked with the rest of the structure in the sentence. There is no unlinked word. Okay, so these three points about defining a dependency tree is very important. Single designated root, each vertex has a single incoming arc, and there is a unique path from the root node to each vertex in V. Okay, this is the definition of dependency tree. Now we're almost close to a point where you have to begin discussing questions. So I'll just go over your assignment statements again. The assignment is on parsing. Its goal is to build a two-way bridge between constituency parsing and dependency parsing. So you are supposed to create a transformer from constituency parse to dependency parse and vice versa. So what is the attraction of this assignment? If you are able to somehow create the constituency parse of a language, okay, most of the languages of the world do not have parsing algorithm in place. There is no parsing tool for most of the languages in the world. Okay, English has both dependency parsing and constituency parsing. Hindi has been attempted, and there is a dependency parser, a kind of simple primitive parser for dependency parsing of Hindi based on Paninian framework. This is from our Indian language tradition, making use of case roles. And there are parsers which are not really as good as English parsers for European languages, many European languages. And Indian languages, the NLP community, we included, are trying to create those systems. So if you are able to create one parser, you don't have to create another the parser of the other kind. CP leads to DP, DP leads to CP. So this assignment will show you how to build this bridge. Now you have to create a tool that will input an English sentence. You will obtain the constituency parse output for the input sentence from any standard parser, Stanford, AllenNLP, NLTK, Spatie. These are well-known parsing tools. You will convert the CP output to DP. By the way, Stanford will give you both CP and DP, so you can compare your output with the Stanford's DP. And then you do steps 1, 2, 3 in the reverse order. Okay, but here you have to take care of one important thing. Do not try to assimilate everything at the same time. Do not try to do everything together. NLP has this elegant framework. You can start simple and go on adding complexity slowly. It is possible to do so in NLP. So you start with the simplest situation: single subject, single verb, and single object. Students played football. Single subject, students, single verb, played, single object, football. Now you can gradually increase complexity. Senior students, you have a phrase now. Senior students, senior adjective, students noun. Senior students who had finished their exam, you have a more complex noun phrase. Senior students who had finished their exam, if you recall, there is an S bar here. Students are being qualified by almost a complete sentence, who had finished their exams. Played is a simple verb, but played energetically is a verb phrase. Verb and adverb coming together. Played energetically all day, more information and more complexity. This is a longer verb phrase. Football was the single object. Now, street football, particular kind of football, street football with crowds watching is more complex. So, you build your rule base. Most probably, you will not need machine learning here. You build your rule base, starting simple, starting from very simple subject object verb combination, and then go on gradually increasing the complexity of the rule base, which will convert a CP to DP or DP to CP. Okay, so do this assignment. It will be very insightful for you and give you a good understanding of both constituency parts and dependency parts. Okay, after all, that is the purpose of assignment. And let me repeat, in NLP, just reading, listening, talking is insufficient unless you implement things, do error analysis, look at the output, make observations, record them, create histogram, create tables, give false positive, false negative, confusion matrix. Unless you do all this, you do not learn NLP. You have to work with the data. That means you have to work with the sentences, words, phrases, paragraphs, and so on. Okay. Only machine learning will not do. Only language phenomena, linguistics will not do. You need a happy combination of all of them. And you have to do a lot of error analysis. This is now time to take up questions, and I hope you have been able to look at the assignment slide. So now we can take up questions if there are any in the chat box.
Uh, let's start with his own question, which started the series of questions in this class. There are quite a lot today.
Oh,
So he says that Ram reads a book and Ram reads. Both are valid sentences.
yes.
So book should be an adjunct rather than an argument, right?
Okay. So here there is a good question, and there is a subtle point here. Uh, there is something called covert argument and overt argument. Okay, so Jyotsna, please make a slide on this. Covert argument and overt argument. Overt means open. Covert means concealed. Okay, so in this case, book is Ram reads. The akanksha or the desire of read is not complete unless you say what is being read. You might also argue that the akanksha of read is not complete unless you say where is the reading activity taking place and at what time. So there is a gray area. I concede that, I agree that there is a gray area. What is essential and what is inessential? So here we will go by the convention which the community has adopted, the community of grammarians, linguists. So they have said that object and agent are essential components for a transitive verb. Read is a transitive verb. It requires an object, it requires an agent. That is the definition of read. So even though book is not present, it is implicitly there. And its absence also is a well-known natural language phenomenon. It's called ellipsis, where an essential piece of text is dropped because of implicature. It is implicitly understood that this is there. Reading means there is a readable entity, maybe a book or a notebook or some article, but it is still there. So that's why book is not an adjunct, it is an argument. But I agree that it is a more a matter of convention than something very technical.
The next question is by Varad. Sir mentioned that sentence is represented as DAG in dependency parsing, but I can't see any directed edges in the figures. If true, what?
No, repeat the question.
Sir mentioned that sentence is represented as DAG in dependency parsing. I think he's saying that any sentence represented
Acha,
as
acha. Okay.
DAG.
Directed acyclic graph. So you
Yes.
want the example of a sentence which can be a directed acyclic graph. That means the node can have multiple parents. Okay. So that is the question. You want an example of a directed acyclic graph for the dependency relations of a sentence. I do not have it ready with me. I'll come back.
Sure. Okay. Saurav asks, could you explain once again how constituency parsing helps dependency parsing?
Okay, so let's take this sentence. So I prefer the morning flight through Denver. So morning flight through Denver has been put under. under one umbrella, that is norm umbrella. So the constituency parcel is telling me that these things, morning flight through Denver, are more closely linked within themselves than things which are outside this subtree, that is prefer, the, and I. They are uh, they are to be thought about after we create the dependencies within the norm subtree. So once I understand the by head finding rule that flight is the head of this norm subtree, then I'll begin linking morning with flight, through with flight, then var with flight. I'll finish this dependency work first and then go outside the subtree. So this is how constituency helps in dependency.
Right. Yash asks, the distance between boy and telescope is
Hmm.
equal to eye and telescope in dependency parse tree 2. Is
Hmm.
it undermining our argument of the proximity of related entities?
Oh, okay. So between telescope and
Between
eye, acha.
boy and telescope is equal to eye and telescope.
Oh, boy and telescope. Dependency parse tree 2, is it?
Yes.
Okay, between boy and telescope. Okay, yeah, right. The path length is same, right? So the question is whether telescope is.
Whether it's undermining our argument of the proximity of related entities.
Uh, is it? So telescope has a path length of 2 to saw and 3 to eye, similarly 3 to boy. So okay, so the question is the boy telescope could have been as well given to boy, okay, rather than eye. Okay, so here again you have to note that the attachment is to be resolved between the verb and the noun. Okay, between the verb and the noun. Why not between I and boy? That is a question which will require a little more reflection. Why are we talking about attaching with telescope to boy versus saw and not boy versus eye? After all, eye is the entity which is holding the telescope. That is the semantics. But syntactically speaking, the attachment points are well defined from syntax. Attachments are either with the boy, either with the main verb, or the noun phrase coming after the main verb. That is how the attachment problem is defined. Okay, what you are asking about is taking us to semantics, and here the relationship is resolved because of the direct linkage with the verb saw. Maybe I have not answered your question completely clearly, but you have to accept my word right now that attachment is either. That is how the convention is.
Shivani asks, we
Hmm.
seem to be assuming that a sentence has only one main verb. If the
Hmm.
sentence is complex and has many main verbs, would
Hmm.
main verb nodes be connected to and as what relation?
No, main verb is only one. Okay. Other verbs are verbs in subordinate clauses. So verbs win. Again, a sentence consists of main clause and subordinate clause. There can be many subordinate clauses, but there is only one main clause. I saw the boy who lives in Delhi, which is a big city. So, which is a big city is the clause qualifying Delhi. Who lives in Delhi is qualifying boy. Now, is a big city. Is the verb of the second subordinate clause. Lives is subordinate clause. And I know is the main verb. So main clause verb is called the main verb. This has a special status. Even if there are many verbs, the main verb is only one by definition. Okay, it is the verb of the main clause. Now, which is the main clause, which is the subordinate clause, that is decided by the syntax of the language and because of the presence of WH words, WH pronouns.
Excuse me, sir, regarding this question only, if we consider this sentence, Ram walks daily and Sham maybe runs weekly. So
Hmm.
these are coordinating
Right.
sentences.
Yes. Yeah.
How you decide main verb?
Yeah, yeah. So there the convention, when you have coordinated sentences, that is coordinating clauses, both the verbs have same status. You can call both of them as main verb, but no, the convention is to take the first main verb as the main verb. Okay, the first main verb as the main verb, and link the second main verb through coordinating conjunct with the main verb. That is the convention. Okay then. Thank you.